From the southern port of Dorne, that's right, the port of Dorne, all the way up to well north of the Wall, which, well, I don't think it's going to factor in this season much. Unless there's a final fight up there. This is Casterly Talk. Finally, episode 12, a review of season 8, episode 1. I'm Ken Napzok, back from, well, my own kind of Winterfell, Chicago. Storms are coming, Annie, as they say in The Phantom Menace, and it delayed a lot of flights for a lot of the people I was out there with. I came back a day and a half later. Because of that, we couldn't get the team together to record Casterly Talk, but we're here now, and that's okay, because I don't think people stop talking about Game of Thrones on Monday morning. I think it keeps going. And we're going to have a lot of fun diving into the first episode of the final season, and also at the end of the show, taking a look towards next week. I cannot do this alone. I wouldn't want to do this alone. That would be silly. So we have the full cast of characters. I have with me in studio Andrews Cabrera, Rachel Cushing, and Lon Harris. Welcome, team.
Hey. We did it. We made it.
We did it. We made it.
Now our watch begins.
Now our watch really begins. This is exciting, team, because about 10 minutes in this episode, I had to watch it in my hotel room, which was okay. It was kind of the plan. Flights delayed didn't affect that. It just brought more people into my room, though I had rules. You could not speak.
It's important.
Joseph Scrimshaw was there, Dorina Ariano, and Mark Ellis, the only ones to pass the test of can you be silent. As I was watching 10 minutes in, it suddenly hit me. I don't know the next second of Game of Thrones as it's going. It's new every second, and that really kind of got my nerd brain spinning. I'm so happy we're back into this. But I want to know first your experiences on how you watched it. Rachel, I know sometimes you watch alone, but maybe call your sister afterwards.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the side of I don't want to be disturbed with me and my Game of Thrones. My boyfriend put up with that, and I was very thankful, but we were actually at a birthday party beforehand, and everybody was talking about their Game of Thrones plans, and several people were hosting, and they're like, yeah, I'm like 10 or 12 people over, and I'm like, nope, not gonna happen. I can't. I'm gonna hang on every word and every look, and just, I want to live in this because this is it, and it's so important to me, as silly as that sounds, but yeah, so my first viewing of the episodes this season is a very intense viewing for me, and I
respect that a lot. I was getting a lot of people we know from our world out there in Chicago. Hey Ken, what are you doing? I was like, nothing. I'm watching in my room alone. Andres, we occasionally call him Ace. You kind of agree in there too.
Oh, right? I really learned this very quickly because this is my first time living with roommates. I usually have lived by myself.
God bless you.
And I quickly discovered that I am not only like, will I not do it? I would rather watch it Monday morning than watch it with people. My roommates invited like so many people over, and I was like, awful. I am sorry, guys. I'm going to go in my room and watch this by myself because I have to see it by myself. Like it's a rule. Like I can't have anyone next to me. I have to see it alone. And I really learned that. I'm like, man, I'm being very antisocial, but I kind of have to do it. I'm sorry. So I saw it completely by myself, and
I love that,
yelling at the screen like I usually
as
do.
you should.
Yeah.
And Lon's like, you guys didn't come to my party.
No, well, I write notes because at Screen Junkies we do a Monday morning recap show, and I'm the guy who writes the notes. So I have that as an excuse. But even if I weren't doing work, I would also want to watch it by myself. Before I started doing notes, one time I went to my friend Jarrett had like a barbecue, and they like went all out. Like they made Game of Thrones themed food, and it was like really cool, and they had all like the wines and beers and everything, and I was miserable the whole time. So I was like, I don't know, I missed that. I'm gonna have to go home and rewatch it to get everything. So yeah, I agree.
I saw a tweet of a bar showing it, and I don't know if that's illegal or not. HBO will look into it, but they were showing it, and it was a packed crowd. And I love passionate fans. I just spent 5 days of Star Wars Celebration surrounded by fans. Love that. I respect it. I'm not wagging fingers at anyone who goes to these things, but I was like, I could not possibly imagine.
Not the first time. It's just it's so detailed, and I mean, we talk about this on this show all the time that you can watch an episode alert, paying full attention. Go back a week later and you're like, I totally missed that.
Missed it.
So imagine being in like a crowded bar. Just doesn't. This is for casuals only.
Yes,
exactly.
It makes my skin crawl. I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
Well, these are my kind of Game of Thrones people. We're going to dive in. Now, here's the thing with Casterly Talk. This is a podcast, so I think I'm approaching this slightly different than the past reviews. We might go in somewhat of an order, but if you're listening and expecting a beat by beat, I don't know. My heart's telling me to go a little bit different direction. Lon and I did produce Watching Thrones. We did a lot of walking to the walking.
Guys, fellas, you gotta watch the Thrones.
We produced that for the season 6 breakdown, and we did beat by beat, and your notes are wonderfully exhaustive. Like when I say wonderfully, I would weep with joy.
Painfully.
Rachel and I did the Collider show last year, Talking Thrones, and same thing. We usually kind of go. I think there's a headline, but then we go into it. So, Ace and you and I have never really done this, so we're going to go new territory. We're going to just flow into it. But I think we have to start actually with the opening credits.
Yeah, right.
I lost my very quietly lost my blank beep on seeing these credits, Rachel.
It was just a brilliant way to start because it caught us all off guard in that really great way where like I'm already sitting up and paying attention, and then I saw that and it's a verbal holy shit, like what is this, like it just it was so smart. And then of course, and I no doubt that the three of you did the same on my third viewing, I was going through frame by frame and looking at the astrolabe and the different, it's all the depictions are different than they used to be, and the way that you flow through the wall and it's all turning to ice and you get to Last Hearth, and then oh my god, to go deep into Winterfell and into King's Landing the way that it did, and all the little details, the red leaves in the lake out by the heart tree, the throne room and the Balerian skull and the scorpion and then the crypts, and like I just confused two different cities, but it just all that detail and without like even I heard that during the press screenings, the big HBO premiere, even most of the cast of characters didn't know that they had done that, so they were surprised too because they kept that a secret, and I thought that was awesome.
I did what I always hum the theme like we all do. So even though I was in the room with these three other people, I was quietly like nah. And I just stopped. I was like, wait, what? And I loved it, Lon.
You got a little sneak preview in it too, because it shows the ice flipping towards Last Hearth. So like a nice little sort of preview of like things are gonna happen at Last Hearth this week.
Do you think that each week's going to have a different kind of
I feel like
ice
we're definitely
crawl?
going to track. Yeah, I feel like we're sort of Indiana Jonesing the ice. Like we're going to track it week to week how far because it's plot information. I mean, you're actually seeing how far the army has made it to the south.
I love that idea, Andres. How did you feel about all this?
I was like, I was very much yelling, holy shit. And I was very much, it might be the highlight of the episode for me.
Wow,
That's how much I was into it, just because I was like, oh my God, and screaming. And obviously, everything we saw, I went through it with like a fine needle and was looking through things and what does this mean and all that. Like I really took a liking to it.
One more thing I noticed about it, we did talk a little bit about this on Watching Thrones. There's obviously spirals are becoming a big symbol throughout the show, but you even got a little sneak preview of that when you go through the tower and it's sort of spiraling the staircase up. There were a few even hints of that in the credits. It's that level of sort of patient detail.
Yeah, it's our type of show when you have to go through the opening credits several times. You didn't have to do that on Facts of Life back in the day.
Can I ask what you guys got out of it? Obviously we see the Night King tearing down the wall, and the second one is the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
A lot of speculation comes from the third one, which we just see dragons. We see a comet. And then we see either horses or direwolves bowing down to the dragons. Is that Dany's, birth of the dragons? Is that what we're seeing? Because I mean, that's the big rumor is that it's signifying the birth of Dany by when she birthed her dragons.
Birth of dragons. I don't know. Do you feel it's just a setup? Do you think you think it might look ahead? Because we clearly got Jon has bent the knee, and that's causing a lot of problems. I don't know. I want to watch it again.
Absolutely.
Just for that, frame by frame. And I'm sure there's some IGN article or something film.net.org put it out. Or maybe Lon has done it as well.
No, I haven't broken that down yet.
This does start, again, I'm saying we're not going to go beat by beat, but I don't know. We'll get some overall thoughts, but I want to talk about where we start, which is this weird, wonderful rhyming poetry with season 1, episode 1 of when Arya was one kind of watching the king show up to Winterfell and poking around, and now we got as my pal Joseph Scrimshaw over Forsetter said the night we're watching the This Is Your Life Arya edition of everyone kind of riding past her. It was I thought a real nice way to just bring us back to the show, Lon, that's been gone almost 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a big thing on the internet with all the blogs was like all of the parallels to the pilot and to the first episode, and it goes way beyond even just like the king and queen arriving at Winterfell and the sort of march in. And all like the character reunions. My favorite example of that, to jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah, jump.
We had the conversation in the pilot between Ned and Jon Snow, and he says, "The next time I see you, I'll tell you about your mother."
Yes.
And then when Jon finds out about his mother in this episode, he and Sam are standing in front of the statue of Ned Stark in the crypt. A really brilliant,
love those little
visual
details.
callback. Yeah,
love stuff like that, Rachel. That's why we're here.
Yeah, it was so much fun to hear lines of dialogue and remember the echoes of that from the first series and people greeting people, and even the sort of lineup of cast of characters when Jon rides in the way that Robert Baratheon and everybody rode in the first time. Like this, you see Sansa where Catelyn was standing.
Yeah.
And they're asking, where's Arya? That's what they were asking in the first episode too. And it was so brilliant in that way, but it also just got all the gears going because you had that opening and you're thinking about Bran and, I think the little boy was supposed to be both Arya and Bran, the way that he was climbing different things.
Yeah.
And then, and to fast forward all the way to the end of the episode to end with Bran and Jaime the way that the first episode did. Like, it's funny. I forgot in a lot of ways how important or how central Bran was in the first several episodes of the series.
Right.
He's the first Stark child we meet, the first one that has a line of dialogue. It's the last shot of the first episode in season 1 is him falling out the window. And we're tracking a lot of what's going on in this episode through him in a very kind of strange way, because he's usually just sitting down in the courtyard.
The magic wheel. Yeah. The magic wheelchair.
But
yeah, people point out Winterfell remarkably accessible.
Yep. I mean, no wonder he's in one spot the whole time.
Right.
It's like too difficult to wheel him anywhere else. But it was so comforting in a way, and so just like I just had a weird grin on my face because I was like, oh, that line, that line, look at that shot composition, just stuff like that brought it home, but also set up so many intriguing reunions and possible conflicts and things moving forward.
This was on Cogman's list of episodes to watch, right? Or was Cogman that did that list?
The first episode? Yes.
Yeah.
Had to have been. It's the kind of thing that, like sets my like little note taking. We need stuff to talk about on a show the next day.
Right.
Heart ablaze to see stuff like, there's so many little details to pick out. They're really doing me like a huge favor. But one thing I did want to point out, we're sort of leading into it, that only occurred to me after a few passes through the episode. It's really almost every character that we see in Winterfell is opposite where they were in terms of their authority, their confidence, their presence. It's exclusively characters who the first time we were at Winterfell, your Jon Snows and your Sansas, who felt cowed, who felt small, who felt powerless. And now Bran and Jaime at the end is really what drives it home, is exactly the opposite of where they were the first time, where Jaime, the most confident in the world, nothing could possibly happen to me, throwing the kid out the window. And now he's back and he's got this, oh no, I've been faced with this consequence.
Yeah.
Bran, serene, confident, calm. There were so many examples of that.
Yeah.
One more that I'll pick up before I shut up and let other people talk.
No.
Varys was another fascinating one to me, where when we first met him, so supremely confident, serene. I've got everything on my
doing it. Yeah.
He's got spies everywhere. He knows everything. He knows what you're thinking before you think it. And in this one, he's one of he and Tyrion, they're these cowed, lonely old men, no power left. They're just wondering what everybody else is going to do. It's a really brilliant sort of way that the whole show has kind of turned all of these characters.
Good old flippity do there, Andres. You like what's going on here?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that stood out to me the most was the score. Was the music. I mean, mimicking what we saw in season 1 and episode 1.
It was,
Obviously
on the King's Road,
it's great seeing the POV of Arya, right? Because that's kind of what we're seeing. We see her react to the Hound, we see her react to Gendry, but we also get the POV of the people of Winterfell or Wintertown, kind of being like, oh, these are very foreign people coming. We even get a little like when they see Grey Worm and Melisandre, like black people. Whoa, I've never seen a black person before. Like we actually see, and they kind of like look at each other like, I don't think they've seen black people before.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great. Natalie Emmanuel did a great, great little moment there. It's weighted. It's a heavy moment. There. Rachel, you had something to say?
Yeah, it's well, the thing that I just sort of like. Part of me wants to kick myself a little bit. In all the predictions we did, and all of I'm so looking forward to the Jon and Arya reunion, and I'm so looking forward to the Hound and Arya, or the different people, whatever. It's like, never once did my mind go to, oh yeah, Bran and Jaime. Like, which is what made the ending of that episode so amazing to me, was like, because I also didn't catch I don't think many people caught in the first pass that I'm waiting for an old friend. Nobody's head jumped to Jaime. And then it happens. And then you watch it the second time and Brian says the line, you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Just waiting.
Just crazy to me that of all the matchups and the things I was looking forward to, that it never dawned on me that Bran and Jaime would meet back up.
Reunited,
One thing about that reunion, I think everybody, including all the memes, which we were talking about,
amazing memes.
Everybody jumps to that it's hostile.
No.
But I don't think it is, because Bran's not Bran, and I don't think it's confrontational what's coming. I think he has a task for Jaime, or he's seen something he needs to impart to Jaime, and that's why he's waiting for Jaime. I don't think, like, they're playing all the hip-hop songs, and it's like, oh, what now, bitch? But I don't really think that's the moment. I think that's the fun meme version of it. But I think the real moment is going to be like, you need to hear this. There's a thing you need to do, or something.
I 100% read it the same way. I saw his look as like, I do the hip hop Game of Thrones Twitter, shout out to that. But I read it, his face is like, man, it's all good, man. Like, it's good, fam. Like, I know why you're here.
Right.
I don't know.
I read his look like, I got you, man. Like, that's how I read Bran's look. I didn't read it as like, oh, you got what's coming.
Coming to. I mean, Jaime's, I think, got some convincing to do forthcoming, but I read it the same way as Bran or whoever that is. I love the Sam Tarley of, and Bran's got whatever Bran's got going on. It's with Baelish too. The other way. Well, back last season, I hate to bring up the painful memories there, Andres, but he knew what was really in Baelish's heart in a way, and I just think he would know about Jaime's heart, right?
Well, I think he saw. I'm making air quotes, everybody. He saw that scene with Cersei and Jaime like we did. Like, he saw that Jaime left. Probably knows what Cersei's planning, and has that insight that, oh no, he's coming to help. Right. And I definitely think there's like we're going to get information from the Bran Jaime exchange.
And Bran is the only character, aside from possibly Jon, who understands that none of this matters. But because they're all human, and because they've all been through hell and back, and because they've all dealt with the things that they've dealt with, that's why Sansa can't really warm up to Dany. That's why the people of the North are so cold, forgive the pun, towards these armies.
Not forgiven. Accepted.
It's the human nature of it all, and we'll get to Sam because that's very telling of why he does what he does in this episode.
Core of the episode to me was Sam.
John Bradley killed me, absolutely killed me. But Bran's the only one who literally has the line, guys, we don't have time for all this.
Love that moment.
I was like, it's meta as hell, but I loved it. It's like, we've got 6 episodes, people, moving forward. But it's telling that Bran clearly knows the pieces that he needs to defeat the Night King. I think he is solely focused on that. I think possibly even to the detriment of some of our favorite characters. And this whole episode is about choosing family and duty, and all of this is all leading to things and decisions that are going to be happening. But it's crazy because Bran is the one who's going to look at Jaime and not see the person who pushed me out the window. But that's how other people are going to see him. Dany's going to see him as the man who stabbed her father.
Alanis,
and they're all going to lose focus of the thing Bran's trying to get them to focus on.
I think that's a great point, and one of the fun moments. They're really setting up on Andres, and you can dive in with any more Jaime Bran thoughts too. But this everyone v Dany, and it's set up, and I think I go to the Samwell Tarly moment being kind of the core of that, and how it and the big revelations. By the way, this is a setup episode, right? And we're so familiar with that, but this to me was the best setup episode ever because it's got stuff I've been waiting seasons to see, right? Right?
It's very difficult because as a viewer, you almost feel like let's hurry this up. Like, I don't care about this whole political Winterfell is against me. It's like, let's focus on the task. That's how we feel. But, they're trying.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they're trying to get us to understand where mainly Sansa. I feel like Sansa is that, counter to Dany where Sansa is coming from in the sense of like, who are these people? What do they want? We didn't choose this. We chose Jon. We chose the North. We didn't choose someone from the South. Yeah. So that's kind of the perspective that they're giving us. Whereas Jon is seeing it as dragons plus fire equals dead whites and dead White Walkers. So that's all that matters to me.
Right.
It's very interesting. I like that they did that. And I hope we don't see that for all 6 episodes.
No, I don't.
Or
I don't
5.
think we will.
I think it's just this episode they really wanted to set up the perspective of the North versus the perspective of Dany.
And it's a realistic perspective to me, Lon, in terms of like, this probably would look around the world. If UFOs invade tomorrow, we still might not trust some of our allies, sadly.
Well, I think one thing that this episode needed to drive home and did really well was that Sansa's been running the North and we've seen her be an effective warden of the North, the viewer, but Jon hasn't and Dany hasn't. And like, I think that they really needed to see that, no, she's not just automatic. Like Jon seems to come in automatically. Arya and Sansa, they're going to have my back. They're my sisters.
Right.
They're going to back me no matter what. And I think this was a moment for him to come back and be like, there is a whole machine in Winterfell that is running without me. And it is another potential asset that I need to, just like he needs to work all of these other relationships, I need to work this relationship. And I need, these are important allies. I can't just take them for granted. One thing I'll mention to sort of pivot on that, he doesn't get a lot of screen time in the episode. He doesn't get a lot of dialogue, but I think it was very significant that they left Lord Royce from the Vale is present and physically next to Sansa, talking in her ear, helping her as an advisor. He controls the Knights of the Vale at this point. Now, Littlefinger's out of the picture. Presumably Robin Arryn is the Lord of the Vale, but
he's not had helped anybody.
But I feel like Sansa is sort of de facto running things in terms of, that makes her an incredibly powerful figure. She's running the North and the Vale.
I think one of my favorite scenes was Arya and Jon really having that moment to talk and some great stuff. I thought, he used to be taller. I was like, whoa, what is that man? Like
I love that she snuck up on him in the snow. I was like, that's very impressive. Great
dialogue. Great scene, but I love that he's just kind of like Sansa, right? And she's like, the smartest person I ever knew. And the real like, oh, you're defending her? No, I'm defending our family, dummy.
Another great like flip from the last time we saw them was Tyrion and Sansa, who Tyrion, formerly the mighty lord, the hand of the king,
the cleverest person she'd ever met.
I love
anymore.
Anytime Sansa's on that second level deck in Winterfell, she's going to say something really cutting to the person that she's next. They love those scenes where Sansa's up there and then somebody comes to join her and Sansa just devastates them.
Rise, Sansa, rise.
That was a great interaction between Tyrion and Sansa. Almost feeling like she leveled up so much to the point that she's even cleverer or smarter than Tyrion. Like the way she said it, when she said it out loud, is when you kind of realize it. Like Cersei told you she was coming and you believed her.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
What did you think about that moment specifically? Now we're just really jumping around here because I think the emotional themes start to emerge in our conversations and going to Tyrion, Lon, I think you're so right. It's the same Tyrion but different status and different has different pieces to play with. Not as many maybe for Tyrion, but I wanted Sansa to be softer the first time, and then the second time. And third time I watched it, it was almost like she was like, I don't have time for that either. You were nice to me when I was forced to be married to you. Whatever. You also just done effed up.
I think the evolution of Sansa Stark is something that's incredibly fascinating, especially from someone who I'm that guy. I'm the guy who did not like her storyline at all in season 7.
Needlepoint Sansa. Oh, in season 7. I'm going back to season 1 when she was doing needlepoint. But
with the whole like I'm tricking the audience and I'm tricking, but I'm mad at Arya, but I'm tricking Littlefinger. I did not care for it. But the premise of Sansa Stark, what the writers are trying to tell us, is that she has all the positive attributes of a Littlefinger without all the baggage that he used to carry. So when we think about it in that sense, we're thinking about this is Sansa Stark with the training of someone like a Littlefinger. She's on another level.
And Cersei.
And a
too.
Cersei.
And Cersei.
And a
Yes.
Cersei. I
That's
think
true.
that cannot
Rachel
be
and I are
underestimated.
like-minded. Yes.
Yeah, but that means that Sansa is pretty, like Arya says, she's the smartest person I know. I mean, if that's the kind of thing that we're leveling up with, Baelish, Baelish was considered like, Baelish can take down anyone.
Yeah.
So the fact that she has those attributes without all the negative baggage that he carried
Love
makes
that.
me feel like she's the logical person in the world of fantasy and magic. She's the one who's like, well, what are we going to eat? Where are we going to sleep? Like that.
Yeah,
those are
she
the kind
was.
of questions that I'm like, I like those questions.
I really did like the exchange, and I know Sansa versus Dany. I really liked how it was presented here. It was realistic because I love Dany. I love the growth, and I love when she even frustrates me. But Dany frustrates me.
I'm
that
Team Sansa, man.
No, well here, all right, we'll take a show of hands. But I just like Dany's growth too, which includes some big mistakes, including some she's still facing right now with the Tarleys. But I love their exchange. I love the dragons eat whatever they want. So it's pretty awesome. But Sansa just like great. How are we going to feed the greatest army ever assembled? And that's leadership right there, and being a good boss. I like where we're at with Sansa, Rachel. And the fight versus Dany, maybe.
Yeah, it speaks to, like I said, the larger arc that she's gone on, and she has learned through a horrifying series of ordeals not to trust people. And that has hardened her, and she has, maybe even sort of edged a little too far on that side. I was one of the people in her first interaction with Tyrion. I thought she'd be a little softer.
I thought so too, yeah.
And but she's so pragmatic now, and so of the mind of, reading people in ways that Jon has just never learned how to do, that is what makes her an effective and capable leader. But it makes her a hard person to like, to get close to. She's almost what Dany wants to be. When like Dany says about Sansa, she doesn't have to be my friend. She has to respect me. Sansa's cultivating a persona, a leadership, a leadership, a type of leader who commands respect. And that's why I think the Northerners are so behind her, because she understands them, represents them in the correct ways and in the ways that they feel heard, where Jon just, he forgets about the individuals. He forgets about prejudice and people's point of views and their own experiences, and thinks everybody's going to think like him, which is also how people like Ned thought, which is the greater good trumps all of these animosities, when at the end of the day, that's not very plausible.
Yeah, even though it should. Yeah, Jon is he is a Braveheart leader. I call that the guy. The he's going to rally the riders of Rohan, which is from the Jetsons. I don't know if you remember that. But yeah,
we're drawing a line here, I think, in this episode from Ned Stark to Robb Stark to Jon Snow, and it's not necessarily a good trend. I don't think these are three noble, upstanding guys with very strong moral codes, but they're not great strategists. And I think they often make some dangerous assumptions, just like what we were saying with Jon, where he kind of assumes that Arya and Sansa will be on his side because he's their brother and they love him and their family. And I think that's a questionable assumption. I also am drawing this parallel because Robb Stark and Jon Snow both also have in common that they've potentially sacrificed their kingship for love.
And love is the death of duty, if you remember Maester Aemon.
It did not turn out great for Robb.
Yeah, again, going to that Arya scene.
Yeah.
Did you do this for love? Do you love her?
One more thing I'll tie back to that. We've been reminded constantly of the first episode. We're reminded at the very end of the episode about the last scene. What does Jaime say before he throws Bran out the window?
The things I do
for love. And then he pushes.
It's such a theme in the whole series. And
Love
Tully.
being bad, is that the thing?
Well, okay, that's one way to put it. But the Tully words, which I don't know if ever been said on this show, but it's
it's
family, duty, honor.
Yeah,
in
Bran-
that
Bran
order.
Bran says it. Bran says it in
Bran says
season
it in
one
the
to Maester Lewin. Yeah.
So it's every character, especially, the heroic ones, the ones on the side of good, to varying degrees. It's what do you choose in any given situation? And, Ned often chose honor to his detriment. And I think Jon thinks he's doing things for his family, but you could kind of argue he's doing things for more on a personal side because of this whole heightened sense of the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look, because basically he says he's doing it for family, but Arya's like, Arya? Like, and then Sansa actually says it to him.
Right.
And of course we cut away before he answers. Thanks so much, guys. But like, so it's this line of your motivations and will you do your duty when the time comes, when the hard decision has to be made, because very hard decisions are coming with the army of the dead. Yeah. And this is where the lines are drawn and everybody thinks they're making the right decision based on whatever their motivation is. But, it's
a lot of interesting stuff for Jon to me, because he is, I go to the Sam Tarley scene and I don't think Dany's a bad person. No. I think her intentions are good. Well, but she's done some things. Andres reacted, and we know
almost everybody on the show has, and that's why I'm so excited about next week. But we'll get there.
Yeah. But I love that once again we got what potentially starts out as a sweet scene, because I'm a Ser Jorah guy, right? Ser Jorah's gonna bring, hey, Dany, this is the dude that saved me. He saved me, and it's a great start to that scene, and then it just turns unintentionally comical, and I actually mean that in a good way, like my father, my brother, but it is that. Another reminds me of the moment where the guy brings his burnt daughter's bones before Dany, and this is what your dragon did, and she's faced with it. I still think at this point it's less of a clear decision, or it's more clear of a decision in her mind. Like, no, I burned them. It was tough. But I love that when Jon is confronted with it, Jon is confronted with the big revelation, but yet to me, the focus, I just watched it again. The focus isn't he's Aegon Targaryen. The focus is
my father lied to me.
Your father lied, and you brought back your girlfriend who's burning everybody, and we don't like that.
That's the first thing that comes into my head is this is also kind of meta in the sense of like how rushed the relationship between Jon and Dany is. How well do you really know her is the big question. And you see Sam confronting him saying, how well do you really know? Did she tell you this? Because that's kind of messed up.
This is that conversation a lot of us have had along our course of life. So
and he's like, well,
Lon, that girl you're dating, did she tell you what she did in 78?
Exactly.
It's interesting that Jon, nobody had mentioned that to Jon, because it stood out to Tyrion. It was clearly
a problem.
It was clearly an important thing that for them to not, they clearly sort of didn't.
And I told you a couple episodes ago, I was very passionate about it because I was like, what did Dickon do? Dickon is a nice guy. He's got a funny name.
Flaunted her authority.
Sure.
But left her with no choice.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the way Tyrion was reassuring us, like this is the wrong thing to do. Dickon did nothing wrong.
Yeah, but in true Game of Thrones fashion, it's not so clear cut. No, like, Dany, you did something. Oh, how dare you? Like, you could see, and even Jon tries to say, hey, I've executed people, but hey, you also saved a lot of people. But she saved a lot of people too. Right. So I think it's interesting.
But what pushed it over the edge for me, and what pushed it over the edge for someone like a Tyrion, who we can relate to, is the burning alive in front of the dramatic way that she had. Jon does it in a traditional way, where he's like, you know,
I know what you mean, but
it's very like, even what's his face said it, King Beyond the Wall.
Mance Rayder.
He's like, that's an awful way to go. Like burning alive, like even anyone could be like, sure, Jon has done some stuff like that before, but burning alive is a different level of, that's a little too far.
Does saying Dracarys count as swinging the sword? I mean, she's not.
I think some people would argue yes. It depends on what your culture is. It depends on what you're used to. And
I mean, the dragon is her weapon.
It's her weapon, right? I mean, okay. If I have to die, I'd rather die by the sword than being burned alive. I will admit that much.
Mark that down on Rachel's resume.
What it is though, even this, debate here just proves that the gray area is so great, and it depends on your point of view and who you are in that story. Because what if it had been House Dane or some random house that she burned that Sam does not have a personal and very fraught relationship with. You know, does Sam act the same way? No. But that's the point. These are human characters given the situations that they're in and finding out the way that he does. And, you know, I even read some people were kind of like confused by Sam's reaction because they were like, he hated his father. Why would he care? And I'm like, that's not Sam. Sam's not a cold-hearted person. Sam is a person that, like, you kill a puppy and he's going to be upset. Yeah. Like, he's his heart is on his sleeve. He's the kind of person that would not wish that on anybody. And it's also the kind of thing, it was his father. It is a person that you can bet deep down Sam had always wished that he would find a way to earn his father's respect and have that happy family back. And he's the positive, see the good and everything in a person. And John Bradley's acting in that scene is just devastating because it's that slow realization and then to kick it with, you know, Dickon having died too. And he asks permission to leave and go cry. And I'm like, I need a minute.
Yeah.
It
really
was
good.
It was exactly how Sam would react to that. And then for him to go and use that to be the impetus to tell John the truth is exactly what he would do. And this show doesn't always get it right in terms of the plotting of getting characters to do things, but that scene was exactly the right scene to get Sam to do exactly what he did. And I just thought it was probably the best part of the episode.
I think the core of what we got going on here, Lon, right?
I mean, the Sam arc is sort of the everything. And I mean, it also speaks to such classic fantasy book and movie themes of the idea of the non-traditional people, the little people, the out of the way people you might not notice right away. They're the ones who are making end up being the crucial parts of the story. Yeah. And so to give Sam, he's the one who's going to deliver to John this news. It's not the Archmaester of the Citadel. It's not Daenerys. It's not Tyrion. It's this, nobody, this guy who, John met because he was getting his ass kicked for being a coward at Castle Black. He becomes the sort of central part of the story. I really like, and the performance is unbelievable.
Yeah, I love Bran saying, no, you're his brother now,
It speaks to family. And we haven't even started, we didn't even gone to King's Landing or talked about anything, but the Theon and Yara was the same thing. And it goes back to the Theon conversation that he had with John last year. And this idea of what family means is you can be a blood relative of somebody, but Ned Stark was more of a father to Theon than Balon Greyjoy ever was, even though he was not blood relative. And we all knew that was foreshadowing for when Jon found out he was a Targaryen and not Ned's son. Not true. You were still Ned's son. Like that's the point of this. And
especially the way Ned raised him. He chose to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And in this instance, Sam was John's brother. Might as well have been. I mean, he was closer to Sam than anyone possibly aside from Robb, but Robb died. And so, to have this information come from Sam, I could think of nobody better. Yeah. Even given the circumstances.
Right. Question about Sam for experts, especially book experts. Is he obviously he's in the Night's Watch, so he's taken he can't be a lord or whatever.
Sure.
Right.
Who is the Lord of Horn Hill now? Like has the entire Tarly family been wiped out?
I mean, his sister and his mother are theoretically still
presumably
alive.
Living there.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like at least in the show, the Tyrells are done.
Well, the Freys.
And the Freys are
well.
done too. So you can theoretically wipe out a house. Absolutely.
Well, to pivot on, because this was the next place I was going. To pivot off that, Jaime had promised Randall Tarly Highgarden as well. So
that's right.
We are leaving vast swaths of Westeros.
You know who's keeping an eye on all this?
Unminded.
Bronn. He wants one of those castles.
Stokeworth.
I guarantee
He's going to
you.
get Stokeworth.
Bronn. Before we go south, I think there's some things I want to dive into up north, and that is dragons and Dany and Jon, and how this episode changed my predictions of where this might end up. It could still end up with Jon, Dany, and a baby, which is weird to me still. But this episode really kind of made me think like something ain't right. When Varys is looking out on them and has that great little conversation about youth and why they give old people respect, it's because nothing lasts. And they're doing the raindrops keep falling on my head dragon dance over there. It changed. It just immediately. Maybe not change. It wasn't like I was doubling down on the prediction of they're going to stay in love and have a kid and all that kind of stuff. It still could happen, but like it's like love ain't being thought of positively here. I don't know if anyone had that reaction.
And that's what they were kind of setting up with that Sam scene. I think Sam has the best line in the episode where he says, "You gave up your crown to save your people. Would she do the same?"
Right.
And that's the kind of question. That's the kind of driving line that everyone is trying to drive between Jon and Dany. And even like you said before, nothing lasts. It's kind of foreshadowing some sort of epic breakup, but I mean, we don't know.
If it's not, maybe not an epic breakup, but an epic test.
Sure.
Like that's
that might be it.
I think I always suspected that there would, when this realization or when this truth came out, because we the fans knew it, and now the main player Jon knows, and when it gets disseminated to everybody else, I assume fairly soon, but I always figured that would test Dany. And this episode did a lot of legwork to show like how many people would be arrayed against her when this information comes out, which is going to further put her back against the wall, which is, just adding to that test. Whether or not she passes the test in such a way that her and Jon can remain together, air quotes, and move
and
forward.
Related.
Sure. Yeah, that's the unspoken truth of the whole thing. I'm not sure, but like I figured that we would have a romance moment. It just happened to be on Dragonback, with a weird shout out to Ygritte. We could live here 1,000 years and nobody would ever find us. And I was like, isn't that him and Ygritte?
It's like when
that's almost the exact line, right?
You start a new relationship, but you go to the same restaurants you used to go with your old
it even looked like they found like an area that was going to sort of be reminiscent of the cave.
Totally.
But one dragon point I have to make because I wasn't thrilled with this. Thrilled with the way it started in the courtyard. Dany says some nice courtly thing to Sansa. Sansa gives her side eye and says, Winterfell is yours. And then Bran goes, we don't have time for all this.
Right.
Great. And then he goes, the Night King's broken through the wall. He's got your dragon. We got to deal with all this. And the only reaction we get from Dany is like a widening of her eyes at the news that Viserion is now a dead dragon going to be used against her. And then we never go back to it. And then they have their romantic flight. And I'm like, shouldn't you be devastated by this news?
You were thinking of the right thought here, because I had the same thought. This is the first time Tormund and Beric know, but they ain't it ain't down yet, and we'll see them later on, and the news is going to come on down. I don't think they have ravens in their.
Well, they must have, because Sansa knew.
Sansa knew, right?
Yeah. So
I was trying to track
maybe she knew from Bran.
Is this the first moment? Did Bran? But it sounds like Bran's finally like, because. And Bran's in a weird situation again, a three-eyed raven, three-eyed crow thing going on here. I guess he's not always just going like, here's what I saw now. Here's what I saw now.
Right.
He chooses when to get it out. But
this is how I read that, because I was very confused about all of this the first time, because you would think not just Daenerys, but everybody would be like, wait, zombie dragons are in our world now? Stop everything. I want to hear, like, if you came into the room with me and I was like, did you hear about this zombie dragon? I'd be like, keep talking. I want to hear more. I wouldn't just be like, let's move on with the rest of our day.
What do you get for lunch?
But I feel like, is there still a level where people aren't sure how to take these things that Bran is saying? Like, is this news from our world today, or is this a thing that might happen in a year? Is this
you
a
don't
thing?
Believe it until you see it, kind of.
Yeah, sort of. That was how that's how I'm rationalizing it to myself.
I think that's a great rationalization, because I think
people are like, oh, well, he's strange. I mean, anyway,
strange boy. I think Thoros and Beric can come down and be like, oh yeah, we can confirm dragon with blue eyes took down the wall.
I feel like eyewitness testimony is going to play different than Bran, at least at this point.
Right. I mean, Sansa still made the move. She said, when we heard the wall fell, I called all our banners. So, like, she is still,
That's true. I forgot that little
doing the things that she's supposed to be doing. So she was aware. And you're right. I probably, because of Bran telling her, and maybe that's just not enough for people, because again, the only people that have seen the Army of the Dead are that Suicide Squad group of people, and
The
most
Snowside
of
Squad,
which
please.
Snowside Squad. Thank you.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I can certainly buy that on the part of the people and the average soldiers and things like that.
Again, I'm going to be that guy.
Be that
I hate
guy.
to be that guy, but as someone who really didn't like Littlefinger's end, that was the biggest hole for me. Littlefinger's like, how'd you know? I'd just be like, no, bro, you weren't there.
Yeah.
Says who?
Yeah.
You, some crazy kid with some, wide eyes, like, nah.
Yeah. You want people to challenge Brandon.
Exactly. Like you say you have this all-seeing vision. No.
Test me. What I have for lunch.
Yeah, but not just that, but the fact that it's so easily believed. It's like, well, he said it happened, so he must have seen it. It's like, no.
To Lon's point, do you think there is kind of, because, Samuel Tarley's been playing with it. It's been fun. But do you think people are just like, oh man, that kid's never been the same since he fell?
I don't know. I think
it's binary. I don't think it's you believe or you don't. I think it's like this kid is saying some stuff, and some of it's true, but like
some of this is so outlandish.
Right.
Like up until the procession into Winterfell, they'd heard dragons were back, but they'd never actually seen one until that moment. They're hearing about an army of the dead, but 99% of them have not seen a white or a White Walker, and they're just dealing with everyday things. Like, how am I going to put food on the table for my family and survive the winter?
It's a medieval setting, too. I mean, like, in medieval Earth, there were, like, a lot of people who were like, no, fairies are real. Like, I know a guy who saw one. They are real.
Especially in the north.
Right, yeah. So it's like, the line between this is a prophecy we believe in, like, this is a folktale and this is a story. Like, I think that's got to be part of the deal.
I think you're right. No, it's
one more thing I want to say about dragon rioting before we get off of this.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Jon, in some ways, Dany and Tyrion are all playing this really wrong. I think they're not used to maybe having to win over a new population. I mean, Dany obviously is, but I think the stubborn.
She's tried and failed.
Right.
Remember, Marine?
Yeah, and I think that you get Davos talking a little bit about the stubbornness of people in the North, and I think they're making some really key errors. I think Tyrion thought he was doing a helpful thing
when he spoke up during
when
the
he comes
meeting.
up like, hey, you guys should listen. Like, that dude, you're not helping. You're a Lannister. You're from the South. Like, they don't trust you, believe you. You're the imp. Like, you're not a good character witness for this guy. And then dragon riding, I felt the same way. Like, sure, maybe some people will be impressed. Like, look at our king. He's got this mastery over dragons. But a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he's one of them now. Like,
that's an interesting take on it. That's an interesting take. Jon riding a dragon was something we were anticipating, and not in a date, Sunday date.
I think we all thought if it was going to happen, it would be
ride.
fly into a battle.
Right. I didn't have a problem with this
And be a
much.
part of him claiming his Targaryen.
Right. That's where I was.
This was the kind of the interesting, and I think it was addressed inside the episode, and it's been a very big talking point. In the books, it's very clear that only people with Valyrian blood can ride dragons. So people who are learned in this world, somebody like a Tyrion, it better be standing on the parapet watching Jon on the dragon and think to himself, that's interesting. Like, how is he, like, that's not supposed to be possible.
Not just Tyrion, Dany, for crying out loud. Wouldn't Dany be like, wait a minute?
Dany's not, I can forgive Dany not knowing much about dragons.
She doesn't know much about
there
her
haven't
own-
been any for 150 plus years. It's not like she's much of a known book person.
Sure.
And she's never had anybody to train her in the ways of dragons. She's been learning on the go. So that particular fact about dragons back in the day, the Targaryen heyday, and again, the show has not been as explicit about this, though in David and Dan did say inside the episode that yes, that's true. Only Valyrian blood.
I hope Tyrion or Arya, who spent a lot of time reading about dragons and girls. Yeah,
there's people around who should know this fact.
But I do like where Lon, you kind of took that thought of like, yeah, this might be a problem. People like, great, you got a girlfriend, but you're riding. Ooh,
yeah, it's like, oh, I get it. All right, yeah, he went native. We sent him south, and now he's riding dragons with blonde ladies and hanging out with Lannisters, and like to not even have had that thought,
right.
To not even have had that thought, to be like, I shouldn't look too chummy with these people who the last time I spoke with everybody from the North were our die-hard enemies.
And the other sort of irresponsible leadership thing to do is like risk your neck by jumping on the back of a dragon.
I made this point. Why is there not a designated dragon survivor? You don't put both kings on dragonback and send them fly. We've already established how dangerous this is.
I just want some saddles made. All right, I know they had that back in the day. I just read Fire and Blood. You could strap in.
Not both of you on the dragons at the same time.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. It was a sexy, flirty scene, man.
It was beautiful,
right?
and the CG was great, and we did end with a Drogon joke of being overprotective son to his mother.
As someone who still has to deal with two chihuahuas that do that from time to time.
Is that how? Because that's how most people read it. I personally, this is my
okay.
I read it as like. This is. I feel like I have a connection to this guy. Like that's what I read it. I read it.
Oh,
as
you
like,
think Drogon kind of?
Yeah, I feel like he was like.
I read a theory.
That's how I read it. This is me.
I read a theory on social media that Bran warged into the dragon, and that's him creepily watching them make out. I really like that.
Well, I do want to know when Bran
like,
decides to not watch. You know, there's got to be a time where he's like, "Oop, I'm sorry, my bad. I'll
I don't think
warg
so.
out of this."
Nah, he doesn't. He's not. He's watching.
But I read it as like,
stay tuned.
like almost being like, wait a minute, dragon rider here. How can you with Targaryen?
I definitely
feel that connection to you, kind of like I feel it with Dany.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
But
I hadn't thought about that, and it's a good point. I just took it's 100% personal experience because
everyone took it like that. I was the only one.
What are you doing to my mom?
A hug and a kiss when I come home, and the dog is like, no,
staring blankly.
I know we were friends yesterday. No, it could be the case. Yeah. I did though. I thought the scene was silly in a good way. I didn't have a problem with it because I know we're not going to have a lot of fun, flirty dragon rides. Like I said, I personally love when Danny's like, no one knows how to ride a dragon till they ride a dragon. What's up? I liked all that stuff. It did turn into a lot of memes, a lot of stuff out there, Andres, which is something
we put
study.
The whole new world Aladdin theme.
I think even Amelia mentioned it. I think inside the episode, I think she was like, oh, we had like a magic
carpet
or like a whole new world.
It actually syncs up. It actually syncs up pretty well.
To the magic carpet ride or
to a whole new world.
Yeah, you've been inspired by the memes, Andres?
Oh, no, I've obviously the king of the memes right now is Bran, and his look it's incredible. Because my favorite one that I retweeted because I was like I'm gonna retweet 20 of these or just like one or two. So I picked my two favorites. Is saying like on the top being like you switch your browser off to private and Bran gives you like this stare like I see what you're doing, man, I still see you, and this idea of like Bran being the creepy dude who's like, I saw what you did. I see you. And it's like, stop it, Bran. Stop.
Did you guys see the one where they put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music under it? And just Jamie's facial expressions when you hear the Larry David theme are perfect, sublime.
Oh, that's great. One more thing before we go south. I think I want to talk about Arya and her reunions. We're gonna have a
I have one more thought on Arya too. So
we have a Ruminations from the Realm coming up in a bit from our friend Thomas Rislin about Arya and the Hound, and he's some great stuff about what they may have learned from each other and what that scene shows. But let's talk about it here as a team. I actually really liked both reunions. One of them I was confused / intrigued. Like, has Arya got some new eyes for Gendry, or am I reading that completely wrong? I wasn't alone with the people I watched it with. The episode ends. The first thing we said, we're like, Arya got the hots for Gendry. Are they playing that now? Like I all read it as
that little turn back that she does when she walks away. Yeah. I think they were seeding it in.
Oh no, that's
so.
I was on. I think I told you a couple episodes ago that's one of the ones I ship. Like I actively ship.
So you're saying
Gendry and Arya.
You're happy it's we're finally seeing what you've seen all along.
Oh, 100%.
They as she's walking away, she kind of looks back and gives a little smile. That's all you need to see.
Season 2 when Gendry was shirtless and she goes like.
Oh yeah, no, she always liked him, but
really young, and I took that as when he's like, I'd be your lady, or you'd be my lady, meaning like you'd rule me.
That's just
Rachel. I need your professional opinion on this.
My head kept going to Princess Bride.
Yeah, well, it's totally that. It's totally an as you wish thing.
Okay, you can win me over by doing that. It's what I like about it is what it says about Arya sort of coming back from the edge of having been no one and having been somebody who was part of a group of people that shunned all emotion and all perspective, and and was very cold and because she thought that she didn't have any family left. She didn't think she had, the friendships had been disappointing to say the least up until that point. And so now she's back in a place, and we start the episode with her, taking it all in, and she's home again. She's reconciled with her sister. She's actually stronger with her sister than she'd ever been in her whole life. And now she's seeing a literal parade of people from her past come through. And I think she's looking at every single one of them in a different light. And I loved the Hound interaction. I know a lot of people said it wasn't enough, but both of them had enough. Both those actors put just the right amount of heart behind it that I was like, this is a meeting of equals. This is a meeting of two people who have crossed paths and learned from each other and are now kind of meeting back in the middle. And then she's seeing Gendry through the eyes of, she was a girl. She's grown up. This is what you would do. And he's a good looking guy. So
Joe Dempsey, he brings the heat, man.
I mean, he was rowing all that time.
Absolutely.
The arms, like
the
it's
arms.
just
He's slinging it.
It was. I thought it was very sweet, and again, like the dragon ride, like we needed a couple of these moments before the darkness that's coming.
Yeah, Stark and Baratheon again. And as far as the Arya and Hound thing,
that was a nice thing.
Look, I thought it was just right. I look at the history of these characters. I wasn't expecting a big tearful hug.
Yeah, what did people think was going to? They're
don't
not
know.
that kind of people.
I'm so sorry that all the things I said to you.
Yeah, that
Come
was
over
never-
here. Give me a hug.
That was never.
And him calling
scoring
her a
rises
cold
up.
little bitch
Yeah.
is like a compliment from the Hound. That's
Thank you.
You survived.
It was
That's it. It's he is true to his. He has had such a great arc, and I know Lon, you've talked about it a lot. And he's changed, but he's never betrayed the core personality, and that is to be gruff and irreverent and absurd and pretty mean. And he's just a realist in this crap world.
Yeah.
I think this whole episode is a lot of respect for the pragmatic characters,
Yes.
the characters who accept life for what it is rather than trying to live out some honor fantasy where they're a perfect person. And I think that's one of the things I love about the Hound is he's real, and it's like, it's about what it takes to survive and what are you willing to do to live. And I love his sort of, well, Arya's still here, so she's earned my begrudging, gruff Hound. I don't know how to relate to people. Respect.
I think we get the sweetness that I would want from season 7 when Brienne
talks to
tells
Brienne.
him. And
I completely agree.
That's the moment where he softens.
Yep.
But here you're right. I think it's harsh. I think it's totally in keeping with his character. But you're cold-hearted bitch.
You're a cold little bitch. I think he says. She's got a great funny line.
It's a little bit of a
they're
term of
ripping each
endearment.
other because she's like, "Well, I robbed you before I left your dad."
Just because you guys brought up that scene, and when he says that line, am I the only one who also read that line in Lyanna's lips when you're like, you left the king, you came back a bit. she almost said it, and I was like, that's crazy.
Once again, Bella
Mormont.
Ramsey as Lyanna Mormont, stealing episodes.
I know. We're gonna talk about things looking ahead, but can I just say, it didn't happen this week. I thought it might happen this week, but it's got to happen. We've got a Mormont reunion.
Yes. It will.
In the
that
offing,
now.
where Jorah's there, Lyanna's there, the men of Bear Island are there. I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like she might have him executed, or she might forgive him. Like we don't know. All the old guard who were around for Jorah's disgrace are gone.
I love the idea of him being his typical Jorah self, like, I dishonored my house, and her going, yes, you did. You're dead. Get out of here.
I mean, she could order one of the Mormont men to execute him right there on the spot. There's nothing anybody could say.
Could be. Let's finally
Create potential tension with Daenerys. Maybe
could
This is
be
another future pod.
Absolutely. Let's take that trip down the King's Road to Kingsland in the other part of the opening credits where we go inside the castle lot there. Interesting to note here, one of the things, going back to that trailer that was released, basically the only thing we got for the show before it started, most of the stuff in that trailer is in this episode.
I know.
And we got a lot of the fight, what we think's the Battle of Winterfell. I'm excited that we got maybe 4 episodes with no clips from.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it came here, and being down south, you saw a lot of it. Cersei, the arrival of the Golden Company, Harry Strickland, all that kind of stuff.
Couldn't they come up with a more fantasy name?
It's like George...
It's from the book. It's actually from the
I
book.
believe you. But come on, George. Harry Strickland.
I think George that day was like, I got lunch. lunch.
That was definitely like the gas man came to George's door and was Harry Strickland.
As someone who looks into this kind of stuff, what I like the most is the fact that he's like this blonde hair, typical white guy with like a heavy Essos accent.
Yeah.
I thought that was so fascinating because that's kind of what they are, right?
That's what they are, mostly.
I did not know this. I read this because it's from the books, and I picked it up on the web this week. But they're interesting Golden Company connection to the Targaryen family, which I don't know if they're going to establish more in the show. Yeah. But you're just saying the blonde hair.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's the concept of like these guys are Westerosi, so they're very pale skinned, but they grew up in Essos, so they have that accent. I was like, that's cool. That's a cool little.
They kept true to that, and I like that idea. We got a lot going on here. We got Cersei. We got Anton Lesser as Qyburn, who just kills it every week. She's gonna die of the pox soon. I love that moment. We got Braun. We also, by the way, learned that Ed Sheeran's character is dead.
I know, the ginger.
Because
his at least his eyelids were burned off.
Is it definitely confirmed Eddie the ginger was Ed Sheeran?
I think they have. And the William the tall good-looking one was the other one at the fire.
So we got all that lot going on here. Let's dive into what's going on in the South here. I think Cersei, we see a lot of things. We see her control, but I think the big takeaway, and we can just start here, is unfortunately, I think she finds herself in a position to do something that she doesn't really want to do. I think she feels she has to. I think Cersei's all about, she's okay for a little pleasure now and then. That especially plays out in the books. But I feel it was sad to watch. It was sad. And as someone who likes the character of Cersei, it was sad to watch her realize, I can't lose this a-hole. I have to give him what he wants in the situation because I need the Golden Company, elephants or not, budget constraints of their special effects or not, and Euron in his mute fleet. I need it. And it was kind of wonderfully tough. I mean that in a wonderful way. It's tough to watch.
About the elephants. Because we've been talking about how it's a medieval setting.
Yeah.
And I think, is it possible Cersei doesn't know or have a clear conception in her head of exactly what an elephant is?
Sure.
Because it seems unrealistic that she would even believe you could put an elephant on a ship.
Yeah, because they're not native to Westeros.
Right.
In fact, I can't think of any period in Westerosi history where elephants were brought over.
So that's like actually a nice historical detail in there that in the Middle Ages, they would have had all kinds of crazy conceptions.
Yeah.
Like they knew of the existence of elephants. And you could actually see books with illustrations from like the 13th and 14th century where they were trying to draw an elephant, but it looks more like a wolf or a bear because they didn't really know. Yeah. So I thought a lot of people were sort of making fun of that. But she would not. She might think you could pack a bunch of elephants into a ship.
Yeah, I thought that was
great. For her to know.
Like, think about it. Like, if you hear a legend of like, they bring elephants into battle, you'd be like, I need to see that now.
Because if there's like huge armored beasts, you might think like a bear, and like you could put a few bears on a ship.
And I loved her final delivery, the line post coital.
One last.
I really did want those elephants. I love that here. Rachel, what do we think about Cersei here? What's going on with her?
Yeah, I mean, Lena Headey, knocking it out of the park because she felt lonely. That really long shot of the throne room. Yeah. We're so used to the throne room being full of courtiers and people and sycophants and your council people and whatnot. Clearly, she has no one except the mountain in Qyburn. And she thinks she's better off without Jaime and Tyrion, and she's clearly sending Bronn off to theoretically take them out. Yeah, well, we can discuss that in a minute. Yeah. So I felt how lonely she was and how she put armor on around her to be like, I'm steely, I'm queen-like, I'm set on this path. And like you said, she sort of just like steels herself to have to, Euron's done everything he said he would. Gave her that gift of justice. Gave her the Iron Fleece. Gave her points. The golden. He's making points, and she also even says, "You're the most arrogant person I've ever met." Yeah. I kind of like that. Yeah. It's sad to see her have to go through the motions in that way because she needs to solidify her position, and then we can endlessly debate whether or not she's pregnant with Jaime's child. She's going to pass it off as Euron's. Did she lose the baby and is now trying to get pregnant with Euron? There seem to be a lot of possibilities going on there because that shot from the trailer was here. Yes. The one he left the room and it looks like just the look in her eyes, she's not crying, but looks like, she's on the verge. And I was just, I don't know. She takes a sip of the wine.
She's drinking wine.
Watched that scene several times to check.
Again,
she does sip the wine.
Middle Ages.
I know.
They didn't know, don't drink the well. I saw people point that out online. It's like, look, they were drinking wine when they were pregnant all the time.
Sure.
But it's how they tipped off Tyrion
in season 7, and Qyburn had told her, So I don't know, but it is sad. I mean, because I do love this character. I do think she's bad, and I think I don't cry for her too much, Argentina, but I think it's tough to watch, and it's the first moment I think that teary-eyed shot is her. She's lost Jaime. Yeah. She's lost Jaime.
I think that's the biggest
thing
that we're trying to tell us.
She
feels this emotions because of her loss of Jaime. Like, she really feels betrayed by that and kind of hurt by that, especially after Euron says that line, I'm going to put a prince in your belly. Yeah. And her, that's when we have that
Always
shot of her face.
Line. Yeah.
But
we use that one, dude. Trust me.
I can go on and off about Euron this episode. Oh my God. Like, man.
I like it.
Really?
I do too. I'm with you, Rachel.
He's grown into it in a way that he's a character we haven't known for very long. We get in fits and starts, but he embodies it. He's a character of action. When he says he's going to do something,
he does. Yeah.
He does it.
Yeah.
Like he's simple in some ways, but it's like I said, it's a character of action. There's so many characters that are all about talking and things like that, and I like that. And I'm even like with Cersei, like, ew, but at the same time, like, you really like putting your neck on the line, don't you? Like, you just go for it. And then Pilo Aspect, really embodies that.
I really do think he's great.
It's a character unlike any other character on the show.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of like the quietly devious, the like schemers. There's a lot of quiet behind the scenes schemers. And I think that it's interesting to see, because Ramsay Bolton sort of fit this bill, but
he was just crazy.
But he was also more just sadistic. It was less gleeful and like, I'm just going to be spontaneous and I'm bored and I'm going to mix things up. And it was more just like, I'm going to torment and torture and brutalize people, which is less fun. I think Euron's he's also a psychopath, but he's more fun, and you don't know, he's unpredictable. It's not just he's going to do the most evil, horrible thing he could. And I think it's a nice change of pace. He's clever, he's a schemer, he's got his own plans, but he's doing it in this very ostentatious, arrogant, over the top, showboaty way, which is it's nice. It's different.
Yeah, I get he's definitely not one of my favorite characters, but I just love it. I love Game of Thrones so much that I wait for all the characters to have their moments, and he's had some great moments.
And I get why Cersei would be like, this is the smartest play I have right now, is to align closer with this guy. I was going to say, I don't think she was ever pregnant. I think now she maybe.
Still I think that too.
I think she had a very strategic reason in both cases. We saw her do the belly touch. To
fool
signal
Jaime and then fool Tyrion.
She's signaling to, and it worked on at least Tyrion.
Yep.
It worked.
I actually think that could be revealed to be right. Yeah,
and I think she'll say whatever she's got to in that moment to get you on her side.
I agree with that there. And we got this thing here with Bronn. I think it's just a little bit of a plot thing. Like, hey, let's get him up there.
We need to get it.
We need to get him up there. Do any of us have any thoughts that he will maybe die from this attempt to kill Jaime or Tyrion, or the other way around? I don't think he's killing them at all. Do you think he sticks around? What do you do? Is he motivated by those wagons of gold?
Yes, 100%. Season 2, Tyrion asks, if I told you to go kill a newborn baby, would you? And he said, it depends on how much money you gave me.
Right. Yeah.
He is a sellsword, and he has always been one. Yeah. Yes, he has created relationships with both Tyrion and Jaime, but Qyburn's speech is exactly the pragmatic speech that would work on Bronn. Look at me. I was a nobody. I was, lucky to just survive my ordeal after getting kicked out of the Citadel. And I helped her. Look what she's raised me up to. It's the kind of selling point that would work on somebody like Bronn. He's going to take the gold. He's going to take the crossbow. He's going to go north. What happens when he gets up there is anybody's guess. Maybe he's attempts to do it and then something happens to change his mind. Maybe a white gets him. I don't know. But they have hinted enough through the seasons that would make most people think maybe he would. for the right amount of
for the
money,
right
for the
amount.
right promises, if things go a certain way. The more interesting question I have to say is because his assumption was, there's no way I'm going to get near the Dragon Queen to kill her for Cersei.
Right,
And
yes.
Qyburn says she has another plan for the Targaryen girl.
What do we think?
Is the plan the Faceless Men? Is she going to hire a faceless person to kill Dany or one of her dragons? It's a theory that I thought of, and then I've heard circled quite a bit over the last couple of days.
I don't dive into those theories, but Andres, this is what you love to do.
I love it.
On the fly, give me an answer.
I have no idea.
Yeah?
And that's why I love it.
I love that.
I love that she does have something in store for Dany, that she's not quite giving up as far as taking her out. I'm curious what she could use. I like that theory of the faceless
because
men.
the power she has is money with all the Tyrell gold and the Bank of Bravos, and she couldn't introduce something we haven't already learned about in the series up until this point, and it would give Arya something not to do, but like an angle, like maybe she would recognize another faceless person and be forced into defending or saving Dany when she's
face off.
Oh no!
There's potential there.
We're talking about Arya.
I'll take my leave. Yeah.
What's the weapon? What is Arya
that's a
having?
good point.
I
Gendry
watched it
built?
again.
It's a spear that's detachable.
Right.
Yeah.
It's dragon glass
Yes.
at the tip of
Yep.
the spear. So this is my question.
Okay.
Why would who is Arya planning to kill? Is she planning to go kill the Night King with this thing? Is
It's
that the
Arya.
plan?
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, because John believes that if the Night King is taken out, the war is over.
won, right?
He presumably could have said this, and we haven't. I don't think we've seen him have that conversation with Arya, but he could have said that to her. So is that her plan? That's a crazy plan.
Hope there's been some briefings at some point.
I mean, we know that she can sneak up on people in the snow. I don't think you can faceless man a White Walker because they just turn to ice when you.
I just think that that's a moment where we see Gendry making that axe for the Hound. I just think she's like, if I'm going to go into this battle, I want a cool weapon too. That's how I read it.
Well, 'cause she can't use needle. Needle's no good to her.
No good.
I don't know if maybe she thinks the Valyrian steel dagger's not enough.
think
to keep a spear is always good to
Does she
keep
know
your
that?
enemy at bay. Like that's the
she?
point of a spear.
Yeah, sure, but does she know that the Valyrian steel can kill White Walkers?
I'm pretty sure John has made it very
Yeah.
clear to Sansa that last season that Valyrian steel and obsidian
And
work.
again, I really hope there's some morning briefings that all the leaders are going over right now and spreading the word.
Sure.
Quick thought on that. I love this. Great point, Lon. Is she the? Don't we see like a spear in the trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it breaks.
Okay.
So a lot of people thought, oh man, whatever weapon she's using breaks. But
wouldn't.
now that you have the plans, you're like,
Okay.
oh, it's purposeful that she wanted it to be
Interesting.
detachable. I just assume it's to suit her fighting style.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we saw 2 seasons of stick fighting. It's
Yeah.
got to pay off. At some point, you got to give us the stick fighting finale.
We gotta have a lot. On
I don't know,
stick fighting.
that definitely struck me as like, I mean, obviously it was an excuse for her to go talk to Gendry,
sure.
but they gave us that insert of the close up on the
really-
blueprint.
and
if they hadn't given us the insert, I
Right.
would have just been like, this was just the excuse.
And we love our inserts that need freeze frames on Game of
Oh,
Thrones.
yes,
we
we
love
do.
who was Sansa riding. What did Sam read?
and
here?
they're
There's
never in there
always
just for an extra shot.
Yeah,
It's never just filler.
it made me have pause. I think initially, it was a moment, but then the fact that it indicates like a Lego building instruction, like
it looks
this
like it
will
screws
launch.
off or the tip comes off.
Let's kind of end almost kind of where we started before we take a break here. And actually, before that, I want to get overall thoughts. But going the final shot of Jaime, him arriving. Was that? How did you feel just as an ending of the show? What was your thoughts on that, Rachel?
It to me, because I thought they were going to end in Last Hearth because you had that gorgeous, morbid. I was going to say.
Oh, by the way, I haven't even talked about Last Hearth.
The Hannibal-esque tableau.
This is where I need Lon's notes.
And I've always had Blue Eyes line, which might
Very
be
funny.
the best, funniest line in the.
He's got blue eyes.
Yeah, to me, I really thought we were going to end there because
I did too.
you knew Ned Umber was going to wake up behind him, and that scene,
I knew, but it still scared me,
of
Rachel.
course it did, but it also
It got me.
It got me. Totally did.
and it mirrors the prologue from the first episode of the series
with the little girl,
the spirals, the little girl,
Yeah.
all of it. And I was like, oh, so I thought full circle in every respect here. And then we had the one last scene.
Yeah.
And as soon as you saw the cloaked rider, I mean, my head, that's Jamie. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting this. And it's just, again, like my brain never went there.
You're so much
I've
smarter.
been seeing Bran sit in that courtyard all episode, not thinking about it, not thinking about it. And then when he walks in and you see the wheel and the fort, I was like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah. He does spend the whole time. He's in the courtyard most
he's
of the
in
time,
the
right?
courtyard from you see him first when Tyrion looks down before Tyrion goes to see Sansa. Then when Sam comes out, he's just out there.
He just camped.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're playing it just
Leave
like...
the weird kid in the courtyard.
and they're playing it the whole episode like he's just making creepy eyes at everybody being a
Right.
creepy Bran. But then, that's obviously building. He's waiting for Jamie the whole episode.
The whole episode.
It's the shots from episode 1 of the whole series.
Totally.
It's Jamie, then Bran.
You're so much smarter than me, Rachel. I was like, hot pie has arrived. Finally. All right, let's talk about Last Hearth. By the way, I just love seeing Last Hearth.
I know, it's cool.
If you're a fan of the show a long time, you've heard of Last Hearth, you've seen the Umbers, the Great John. Oh, your meat is tough. And then the wily son that gets killed in the Battle of the Bastards. I really like going there, and this was freaky stuff here in a good way. And that spiral, Lon, spiral. We keep seeing this spiral.
This was another. I have long nursed the theory or the idea that the White Walkers and the Night King, it was more like they're like a manifestation of a force of nature. It's like the movement of winter and death and decay. I'm moving away from it because more and more the Night King is acting with a lot of intention and a lot of he's plotting. He's leaving messages. He's communicating. It does not feel like you don't get dark omens from a force of nature.
Sure.
You don't get. And so this felt very much to me like the Night King has a plan.
Yeah,
He's got a very clear goal. We don't know what it is.
Right. But it has to tie back to the first men
Yes. Yeah. And
because of the cave
children.
paintings
And the children of the forest.
Like he was a man that was changed into the Night King. So when he was a man, when that battle, that war was happening, that spiral meant something to one of the
him.
races, or maybe to him in a personal level. I don't know.
Yeah.
But because we saw it in the cave paintings as well as several times throughout the series on the Fist of the First Men and that first
the
episode.
artist.
Exactly. So that's, I have to agree with you, Lon. Like it has something to do with what happened when the White Walkers were first
and where
created.
he was. Where he's created.
Yeah, I mean, we know that symbol comes from the children, so it's a callback to that. I mean, I also agree with that statement, but it's also the idea of like why they were created, and maybe they're just trying to complete their purpose, which was to kill men.
That's I've always talked about. I joked about even him going to the God's Eye to try to like reverse the curse or something like that. But this kind of like I'm here to. It's Kylo Ren from Force Awakens. I'm here to finish what you started, grandfather.
Which is what the children intention, like what they first wanted when they made it.
Yeah, but oopsie.
But that was, I mean, you may be right. I mean, I think this is all very compelling, and it probably has something to do with this. The problem with that, though, is the White Walkers didn't actually listen. Like, this whole war happened because they went berserk, and they didn't just do what the children... They started killing everybody, and that's why the children of the forest had to unite with the first men to kill them. So why, after all this time, would they suddenly be like, now I'm going to finish the original task?
Sure.
Now we're back to a magical explanation that involves seasons, that involves the magic in the world, because that is tied into the seasons, why there's dragons all of a sudden after 150 years, why the warlocks are all of a sudden more powerful than they have been in a long time. It's because magic's back in the world in some way. Again, that still doesn't tell us why.
Right.
You're right. Like was there an impetus? Was it a birth of the prince who was promised, Azor Ahai? Are we going to start tying in some of these legendary prophecies as to the why and what kicked it off? Which maybe brings us back to the astralabe thing at the beginning that has the comment on it. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something
The
signaling
The Doom
from
of
that.
Valeria as well. I mean, everything you're saying is kind of where my brain went. It went straight to magic. It went straight to like, what if that symbol, and this is me being a nerd as well, is kind of like some sort of like...
Your home.
No, but yeah, exactly. But what if it's like some sort of way to like actually inhabit magic, some sort of like sigil or something? Because if you do actual magic, you actually do symbols and create symbols as some sort of calling, as some sort of epicenter to not just mark your territory, but almost kind of create this ambience of magic. I also go back to the Return of the Dragons being somehow maybe connected to the rise of the White Walkers and them being like, we were around, but we weren't that powerful. But now that dragons are back, we're supercharged and we can do our mission or whatever that is.
I also feel like the one thing, and maybe they're going to pull a Lost and drop this particular thread, but the sacrifice of Craster's babies and the only time we've ever actually been to what you would consider like the home base of the White Walker, the very top of the world.
Lands of Always Winter.
Was when we saw the White Walker delivering that baby and the Night King turning him into a White Walker. I do feel like it's going to involve in some way, he's looking for a replacement. He's looking for a new body. Somebody's got to be turned in that way.
Look out, Little Sam.
I was going to say.
Little Sam
is
definitely has a target.
My new Night King.
Well, you got to think too, they're like, and not that they're not delightful characters, but Gilly and Little Sam have lasted a very long time.
Right.
Most characters don't get a significant other and family that get to be this prominent from season 2 on.
There you have it. Lon Harris wants Gilly dead. That's what he wants.
I mean, there's so many times it could have happened in Mole Town. Like, she's been all over it. She keeps surviving. Maybe a reason to keep Gilly in the mix, is all I'm saying.
Quick overall thoughts here. Lon, just as a first episode for this final season and a setup episode, where do you put this one? What do you feel about the episode overall?
I think it's one of the very best like play setter episodes they've ever done. Every season has a play setter
Everyone
episode.
does. Yeah.
We got a lot of characters that are over here or they're over there. Or they're on this continent. We got to get them all back where we need them. There always are some moments that are not super elegant. Like the Bronn scene this time felt a little like, all right, go.
Sure. Totally.
But overall, this felt really tight for one of these kinds of episodes to me. Like it flowed, and there were lots of encounters I didn't necessarily see coming. Lots of satisfying moments. Yeah, I thought it was great.
I agree. It was set up. It gave me these big moments, these big reveals that I think when you put this down on the show map and you go back and rewatch all 8 seasons, this is going to be an episode that has a lot of great things for us all. There, Rachel, where you come down on this final one?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like the Bronn one and the Theon one felt a little rushed and a little like we just need to get them to Winterfell, and they tracked well enough so that it didn't bother me too much. I found that what I really liked at the end was the characters pretty much know what we know. Sure. Like the truth about Jon is out. Now, again, the next level of who they tell and when they tell them is the next thing. But the fact that Jon knows it by the end of the first episode is pretty huge. And all the pieces in terms of all of our heroes on one side, but with all kinds of little fractures in that and what and how those are going to, widen and cause conflict before we even meet the army of the dead, which is the meat and bones of Game of Thrones, and it's all rooted in these characters. And I thought that the plotting and getting all of that information out and the interactions of all the characters, like every time 2 characters got together, I'm like, oh, Tyrion and Sansa. Oh, Arya and Jon. And Jaime and Bran. Oh my God, I didn't even realize I wanted that so badly, but I do. So I was very, very happy with a large part of this episode.
I love that. I love what you're saying too about we still got these fractures in the foundation for this big fight, and we still either have to deal with it before or deal with it after, which we'll talk a little bit after the ruminations segment about going for next week. So, and closing on overall thoughts, Andres, where do you come down on this one there?
It's echo everything you guys just said. I didn't care for certain parts, especially like you said, the Bronn and Theon stuff. I just didn't care for the Bronn stuff, especially. But overall, again, this is all setup, but it's good setup, and it's setup that we need story-wise. We absolutely need all this. And the interactions between characters is almost perfect. Like, there's no other way you could write these interactions. Jon and Arya, the Hound and Arya, whatever it is, it felt right, and everything they did, it felt right. So to me, that's a solid episode right there, just based off that.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying. All of you saying we really do like this episode. That's the thing about setup episodes. They're there for a reason. We need them. We had about 2 years to make up. And, we are the type that read the books or read the maps or study the maps or watch the shows again or go into a wiki of Ice and Fire. And not everyone does. They need the pieces reset. It has to happen. We're going to come back, but right now we got this segment, Ruminations from the Realm with Thomas Risling, focusing on the reunion of Arya and the Hound.
Hi everybody, I'm Thomas Risling and welcome back to Ruminations from the Realm here on Casterly Talk. Now today I want to bring up the reunion of Arya and the Hound, which we saw in the first episode of Season 8. And to many I've spoken with, this reunion seemed short-lived and to some even lackluster. And that's why I want to explain the reasoning and some of the story behind it so that we can help to change that perception. Now we all know the last time the Hound and Arya saw each other, Brienne had just defeated the Hound in single combat, and Arya went to speak with him for what she assumed would be the final time. And the Hound, who's badly injured at this time and on the brink of death, begs Arya for a mercy killing, even prodding her about the butcher's boy Micah and her sister Sansa. But Arya doesn't grant him that wish. Likely because she believes he doesn't deserve a quick death and instead should suffer for his many crimes. She robs him and leaves him there to die. Arya then heads for Braavos, and we don't see the Hound again until Season 6, when he reappears and is living and working with Brother Ray. But let's wind that back for a second. Arya and the Hound had many experiences during their time on the road together, imprinting these little pieces of their moral compasses onto each other. And that's exactly what we see in their short reunion. We see a lot in a very short scene here, and the scene begins as Gendry gives the Hound a dragonglass axe that he says was very difficult to make and the material's hard to work with. And as he's saying these things, the Hound begins to insult him and his work. And just when it gets uncomfortable, Arya steps in, beginning this awkward reunion. She tells him to leave Gendry be, and she confronts him. His eyes narrow on her, and he says that he knew she was in Winterfell and that she left him to die. But Arya reminds him that she robbed him first. And he approaches her, and they share this sort of emotionless stare. The Hound examines her, looks her up and down, and calls her cold, and says that must be why she's still alive. And he calls her cold in a much more rude way that I'm not going to repeat. Now, this might not seem like much of a conversation, given their history and given the obvious concern that Sandor showed for Arya last season when Brienne told him that Arya is alive and is home. But despite their last meeting, and despite all of Arya's time in Braavos, I did find Arya's lack of any emotion to be somewhat surprising here. And then it clicked in my mind. Arya's learned from the man that Sandor was, before all of the recent events and his time with Brother Ray. While at the same time, Sandor has learned from some of the traits that Arya fought so hard to rid herself of. Now, Sandor Clegane is a hard man who is beaten by his lifestyle, poor choices, and experiences, but he understands remorse now. And as an example of this, let's go back to Season 4. Arya and the Hound meet a farmer and his daughter while watering their horses near Fairmarket, and the Hound is rude and flippant as always, but Arya lies to them elaborately in order to cover for Sandor's gruff exterior and demeanor, calling him her father, concocting this huge story, and even apologizing for his way of speaking and his behavior. The farmer and his daughter believe their story, and they welcome them both into their home for rest and a meal, but in the morning, Arya wakes to the sound of a scuffle and the daughter's scream. The Hound had stolen from them and hit the farmer. Arya attempts to stop him as she knows this isn't right, but the Hound presses on and claims they'll be dead by winter, and dead men don't need silver. Very cold, essentially leaving them to die. And all of this happens despite his earlier claim of not being a thief, which also proves that he's a hypocrite who will do and be whatever he wants to do and be just to get ahead. A trait we later see in Arya to a lesser extent, but it's still there. Now later in Season 7, when he returns to that small home near Fairmarket with the Brotherhood, he finds the man and his child dead. The man had taken his daughter's life out of mercy, and then he had taken his own to avoid death by starvation or freezing. They were dead by winter, just as the Hound had predicted, and his robbery surely didn't help their chances. We then get one of my favorite Hound scenes where he's burying the farmer and his daughter, an action he takes both out of respect but out of knowing that his actions before were wrong, and seeing now that Arya was right, he shows remorse. He even tries to say a prayer, even though he fails miserably at it, he tries. This remorse is something he's been entirely devoid of up until this point. Arya, on the other hand, learned how to be the cold little that the Hound now sees her as. From him. She learned this from him. He taught her how to lie without remorse, to kill without remorse, and to put herself first. Traits that she pursued to Braavos and then even further within the House of Black and White. And I believe this is largely why Arya didn't fit with the Faceless Men, because she was always thinking about her own motivations and goals, putting those first instead of the motivations and goals of the Faceless Men and the many-faced god. Now, I'm not saying that she should have just accepted the brainwashing and become a waif-like Terminator, but I do think these predominantly negative traits, largely passed on to her by the Hound, certainly played a role in her leaving Braavos and returning home. So, in summary here, that short reunion, during the first episode of the 8th season, when Arya responds to the Hound by saying, "I robbed you first," she's really saying, you got exactly what you deserved. Nothing more, nothing less. And to top it off, she delivers it with the same coldness in which Sandor dismissed her when she tried to stop him from robbing the farmer and his daughter, the act that taught him remorse. Ultimately, Sandor Clegane and Arya Stark have learned so many things from each other, from the versions of each other, that they don't want to remember, or maybe that even no longer exist. And all of this makes their reunion short and slightly awkward because they see pieces of their old selves within each other, within these new people they've strived to become. And they relate to each other now in this sort of very roundabout, uncomfortable way. And that's something that neither of them ever thought would happen. You can find me on Twitter at Thomas Rissling and on Instagram at TRissling. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this rumination from the realm here on Casterly Talk.
Thank you, Thomas. Great thoughts on the Arya and Hound reunion. Was it what we wanted? I think in some ways it was, but there's a lot beyond just what we saw, and Thomas took a nice deep dive into that. Thank you, Thomas. More ruminations of the realm throughout the season as we review and break down and dig into the final season. All right, we got about 10 minutes left here or so, though you try stopping us talking Game of Thrones. Andrews Cabrera, Rachel Cushing, Lon Harris, and myself, Ken Napzok here, going to talk about next week's episode. And I'll be honest with you, I think I saw the preview for next week, and then I saw it in the hotel room watching the first time. Then we went downstairs and all got our flights canceled and then got really drunk. I don't remember it, and I've chosen to not watch it because I want this final season to have as much surprises tossed into my face every week. That said, though, I do want to look ahead. Lon, are we getting the battle? Are we getting the battle?
No, I think they've said that's 3, right?
That's 3?
Episode
Okay.
3. Next week, the interesting thing, they publish all of the run times for all the 6 new episodes. Right. Next week is another short one. It's like 52, and then it's a 90-minute episode 3 Battle of Winterfell Juggernaut. So we've got one more sort of setting pieces in motion before
that makes sense, because
arrive.
I looked at more than anything, Jamie, we're going to have to deal with his return.
We need Jamie's return.
I
I feel like we're going to start, Theon will probably make his way back this week, and we'll get him.
Everyone's coming back to the bar.
Bronn is going to be interesting in terms of time. I know people have been getting on their case a lot about travel times. Right. I feel like he can't even get there until the battle's long over. Like, he's probably not going to make it to the north until episode 4 or 5.
Interesting. 30. You got 30 days from Keen's Landing to Winterfell.
You're not wrong, but that hasn't stopped the show before.
It hasn't stopped the show before, but I actually felt like that was like part of what they were doing this week, which I thought was interesting, was they're setting up the Battle of Winterfell. They got to get everybody there, but then
there's 3 more episodes after that.
They are kind of starting to look at like what's the world going to be after either the dead bypass Winterfell or the dead are stopped at Winterfell, one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of those plot lines. Like, I don't think Bronn's going to enter into the mix until after we know what happens with the dead at Winterfell.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Rachel, what's your thoughts on what's coming next week?
Yeah, to me,
Set up part 2.
It's the cracks that we mentioned that are forming. It's the North versus Dany. It's them being very resentful of Jon's decision, and Jamie walking into the midst of that is just feeding the flames, because Jamie's got very few friends up there.
Yeah,
the Starks hate his guts. Dany's is not a fan. He's got this reputation, and we know the truth. Brienne knows the truth. Bran knows the truth.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're going to get a really interesting quote unquote trial. I mean, all the Lannisters have been on trial, so it's about time Jamie joined the fray with that. But that it's going to get so messy, and that Game of Thrones way, because Dany will be, angry that he killed her father, but then everybody's going to turn and look at her and like, what did you do to the Tarleys? The same thing your father did to Ned Stark's father and brother. The same thing he was about to do to 1 million people in King's Landing. And it's going to turn into well, you did this. Well, you executed these people. Well, you did that. None of these people are perfect. All of them have murdered people and executed people and made horrifyingly terrible decisions. Dany executing the Masters and Marine. Willie, she just massacred a bunch of them. We found out later that his Dar's father was one that she massacred. Right. He was a good person. So nobody's hands are clean. And I think that's what this trial will sort of bring to light. And it's going to be about which characters can put the past behind them and which ones will not be able to let go.
Which one can listen to old wheelchair Bran? We don't have time for this.
Exactly.
We don't have time for this. Andres?
Everything you guys said is pretty much what's going to happen. I also don't watch the next episode. I purposely don't watch it just because I want to be.
I to be clear, for me, I used to, but this fun, I just was like, you know what? I don't remember what I saw. I'm going to keep it out of my life right now.
Obviously, the big centerpiece of this next episode is going to be Jaime, which is good for me because that's my favorite character, as I've said before.
The one left.
The one left. Correct.
Which every time you choose one.
But
Red Viper.
He's gonna die. Either way, I can't wait to see the interaction between Brienne and Jaime. That's obviously as someone who fanboys about that stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a great conversation for them to have. It's going to be centered around Jaime building the pieces before the epic battle of Winterfell. Either way, as simple as I put it, that's still very exciting to me. I cannot wait.
Oh no, it's exciting
to set up this epic battle that we're going to see in episode 3.
Jaime's had connections with a lot of people, and not all of them good. So, like Rachel, you were saying, I think that's interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, the other thing that this episode did quite a few times, and it helps when you have dragons because then you are prompted to have an aerial look at Winterfell. And again, the opening credits did it too. I think that there was a lot of, I kind of actually thought Ace might bring it up, but what's the strategy with Winterfell? Because I think, they'll get word the dead are marching further south. Ed said, we've got horses so we can get around the army of the dead and get to Winterfell first. So I assume Tormund and Ed and those people will arrive and with the army of the dead basically hot on their tails. So I also, amidst all of the, the character issues that are going to be brought up by the fact that Jaime's there, they also have to plan for this attack. And I found it interesting that we saw so many aerial views of Winterfell and the outlying areas and which armies will be stationed where and how.
They're building trebuchets, all those kind of things.
Exactly, the different things. And we know that the crypts, are very largely unexplored and supposedly go for miles and miles underground. And we've all speculated about the Battle of Winterfell, and we did see the shot in the teaser of Varys and people down in the crypts, and where did those tunnels lead, and will that help? There was a lot of sense of space happening in the episode that I think will come into play for the battle.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one other thing I was going to mention that we haven't talked about yet were the lonely old men. They're all there and in the
Davos,
mix for something, and those guys are not fighters. Davos has said he's missing some fingers. He's not much of a fighter. Varys is not a fighter. Tyrion, where they go, those I feel like we've now established them as a collective. And that they're going to be doing something.
They really have, yeah.
And I think that's probably along the right track. I think they're going to be the ones who are exploring under Winterfell and maybe uncovering old arcane. See Sam perhaps as well.
Sure.
With that group.
Can I ask a question to you guys? Do you think we're going to lose someone next episode?
I thought we were going to lose something this episode.
I did too, but
a little slower start than I thought.
I do. I think there's going to have to be.
Yeah, is it going to be those brave 3 men who were? That's the big thing that I kept coming up. I'm Tormund,
Beric, and Dolores,
and
Dolores said
because they're the closest.
I think they have to, but I think they have to deliver the words they know.
Yeah, I also feel
or
like
maybe one of them makes it. And
that's what I'm thinking.
But I do
think one of them goes down. I low key think
because you also need them, and I know this is terrible, but at the same time, we need them to come back as whites. We know some of the characters that are going to die in this battle are going to turn around and come back as whites. So
Interesting.
Also, Tormund and Beric, you could have just taken them out if you wanted. If they weren't still in the mix, there was a perfect prime opportunity at the end of last season to be like, they got crushed by the wall.
That's what I said.
So they didn't. So they're still here. So we got one or two big moves with them left. Here's my one last thing. I know, Ken, you're desperate to get out of here.
No, we're not desperate. You're desperate. I'm not
thought if we, I don't think we're probably going to spend any time in Essos at all this season. But I thought if we were,
Fortunately.
we have 3 characters there that potentially are still in the mix. I think it unlikely that Daario Naharis will come back, but he's alive.
Right.
Jack and Hagar, who you mentioned, a way that we could sort of potentially bring her back. And then the big one,
Melisandre.
almost positive she's coming back, is Melisandre.
Has to.
I thought we would do a little bit more work on how some of those characters are going to get over this episode, because if we're saving it, are we going to Essos late in the season? I don't think. How are we going to do it?
I've been thinking about the Melisandre one, and I think she shows up after the battle, or maybe in the battle.
Like
maybe
the
she has
last
something to do with
episode or something, maybe?
Maybe she has something to do with the defeat of the Night King. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
I'd always thought that the Lord of Light would have to be involved in some way, shape, or form to defeat the Night King. I think we've explored other possibilities with the old gods, and maybe the Lord of the Light is the next thing they have to face in some way, shape, or form after the fact. I'm not sure how it plays a part, but it has to play a part, because last season she even said, "I die in this land," so she's got to come back.
That she and Varys are both going to
gonna
die.
die
with.
again.
It was the first time they very, very pointedly brought up the prince who was promised versus the princess who was promised. She brought it up. So that thread's got to get tugged.
Right. And I did think we would do a little bit more of that building early in the season.
Surprised
To
we didn't see
like
it.
her popping up in episode 6 seems weird.
Yeah.
Everything you guys said. Plus, did we get a little mini spoiler that Yara Greyjoy was like, well, if you guys lose, you can always come to the Iron Islands.
It's actually the second time they've mentioned that, because last season 2, Euron, they had that whole
They
like,
can't swim.
He can't swim, I'm taking it. And it was, he was faking
is
it.
that-
Spoiler in the sense of
in the sense
gets
of like
destroyed.
they do lose and they go back to the Iron Islands.
It's like a regrouping area.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. My thought is that turns out they could just walk on frozen water and Pike's gone.
That would be so cool.
That would be a very grim way to end Game of Thrones, is the lone survivors are just on that salty, rocky beach on Pike, just waiting out the inevitable.
Sure, that's it. Well, we'll know soon enough. We are here. Casterly Talk will be here every week. Canceled flights aside, we will be here Tuesdays. I think it's possible episode 3 might be on Mondays, because my travel schedule means we might be recording. We are going to be recording a day earlier, so I think we'll release that one a little earlier. But you out there, you know where to find us on Casterly Talk. Just subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, like and follow on Anchor. We will start incorporating some of your messages this week. Just I had a great time. My life thrown up a little curveball being stuck in Chicago a day and a half extra. So there's some messages. You can reach out on the Anchor app and leave those messages. I think our friend Eric Monroe has one too as well. A lot of thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts, and that will help us process and break down these episodes. Before we go out, everyone here's a bunch of stuff they do, and I want you to know about it. Like Mr. Lon Harris and his fine work over at Screen Junkies. Where can they find and follow you, sir?
Oh, well, they can follow me on Twitter at LONS, and Screen Junkies is easy to find. YouTube.com/Screen Junkies.
It's around. It's around. Rachel.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rachel J. Cushing, and I occasionally pop up on a thing called the Schmodown, the movie trivia Schmodown, so you can look that up on YouTube too.
Heard about it. 1,000 people strong in Chicago. A lot of fun. Andrews Cabrera, who is, featured prominently in the back cover of my upcoming book. Your quote is there, sir.
Hey, look at that.
Look
That's
at that
great.
for the world to see.
Absolutely.
You do a lot of great things, sir.
Come follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Squad Leader Ace. And the meaning of podcast is on the Collider Factory iTunes feed. And we're also on YouTube at First Cut.
Absolutely, with Robert Butler III, who is still in Chicago.
That's right.
Turns out he's still there. No,
He's going to watch episode 9 in Chicago.
Almost the case. You can follow me at Ken Napzok, or go to the new and improved KenNapzok.com, where you can find information and direct links to purchase my book, Why We Love Star Wars, The Great Moments That Built a Galaxy Far, Far Away. I'm still riding and will always be riding that Star Wars high. That is it. We're going to see you all very soon for more Casterly Talk.